Hello! Today I'm making a disappearing 4-patch block, and I'll show you how I spin the seams to make the block lay nice and flat for making a quilt. First, I make a regular 4-square block. I'm using 5-inch charm squares with a solid and different pattern squares in alternating corners. I sew the vertical seams together first, making sure to press the top seam allowance to the right and bottom to the left, like this. Then when I put them together, the seam allowances are going in opposite directions so they nest together neatly. Then I sew that seam together, like this. And I have made a regular 4-patch block. And now I am getting ready to spin my first seam. In order to reduce some of the bulk where the seam allowances intersect, I will very carefully snip open the threads just within that seam allowance where all 4 pieces meet together. Then the seam allowance will start laying flat, all going in the same direction and distributing the bulk evenly in that center seam. So very carefully snip just those threads within that seam allowance, being very careful to not cut into the fabric. Once I have snipped those threads, I can gently wiggle it open and finger press the seams, all going in the same counterclockwise direction before getting ready to press it with a steam iron. Like this. All of those seams laying nice and flat, and see how it makes a little pinwheel in the middle? It's so cute! And here is the finished 4-patch block, and now I am getting ready for the scary part. I line up the block on a rotating cutting mat, and using my clear plastic ruler, I measure 1 inch from the center seam. I take a deep breath, and I make my first cut. Like this. Then, keeping all the pieces in place, I rotate the mat and repeat the same on all 4 sides. You don't need to have a rotating cutting mat for this part, but it definitely helps speed up this step when you're making a lot of blocks at once. Now I'm back to the beginning, and this is how it looks. The block is now cut into 9 pieces. And now the disappearing act begins. I simply take the center pieces and switch them top to bottom and the middle pieces left to right. Then I will sew all these pieces back together and it will create a new pattern that looks like this. All of the seam allowances are already now facing in opposite directions, which will help assembly come together easily and smoothly. I will start by sewing the vertical seams together, starting with the left and center rows. Like this. I leave all the pieces attached with the threads in the middle. It helps me not get these pieces mixed up. Then I repeat the same thing, sewing the right pieces to the center. Like this. Now I can open it up. You can start to see how the block will look when it is put together. But before I press these seams open, it is time to do the next group of spinning seams where the center pieces intersect. Here's that first seam that I spun before, and now the 2 seams next to it need to also be spun open using the same exact method as before. carefully snipping the threads just within the seam allowance and then wiggling open that intersection until the seam allowances lay nice and flat. And I'm gently finger pressing just so the seams start to lay in the direction I want them to go. There's a certain direction they'll naturally start to fall. These ones are spinning clockwise. The last seam was spinning counterclockwise, and I just follow the direction that the seams just naturally try to fall into place. And once I have those center seams spun open, I will get ready to press. The top seam allowances will both get pressed to the left. The center seams will be spun open, and the bottom seam allowances will both be pressed to the right, like this. See how they're all laying nice and flat? All the seam allowances are going in opposite directions. That will make it easy to assemble, sewing the remaining two seams together, like this. And now there are 6 more intersections to spin, and I repeat the same exact process as before, snipping and wiggling open, gently finger pressing, very carefully making sure not to accidentally clip into the front of the fabric. There are many other ways to press seam allowances for quilt blocks. Some people press all their seams to one side, some people press all of their seams open. I just like spinning seams whenever I can because I like how it reduces the bulk of the intersections quickly and easily, and also it just looks cool. Even though literally no one will ever see it in the finished quilt, but I know it's there, and that makes me happy. Here is what it looks like after a good press with the iron. So neat, so tidy, so smooth. And here is the finished block, laying nice and flat where all of those seams come together. And adding multiple blocks together is so easy. All of the seam allowances are already going in opposite directions, whichever way you put them together. So here I just line up the seams. All of the intersections are nesting neatly together, making it so easy to assemble. Like this. Here's how it looks from the front with all the intersections lining up perfectly. And from the back, you guessed it, we're spinning more seams. Exactly the same way as before, snipping the intersections and wiggling them open. This is a fairly simple block to make, but it comes out looking very cool, like you spent hours sewing tiny little pieces together and everyone will be super impressed. That is how I make a disappearing 4-patch block and spin the seams. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.